Hey, what's up everyone? Adam here with brahwegotthis, and today I want to go over 10 things that you should do when building your character in ESO. These tips are going to be essential things that help you set your character up the best possible way for yourself when you reach certain stages in the game. This video is super relevant now since ESO just had a huge game-changing update with update 29, Flames of Ambition. This update is going to give us so much versatility, diversity in builds, and so much more. And this will cause players to build characters a little differently now, so I want to try to go through the whole process with you. If you ever have any questions about any of this, you can always come by my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/brahwegotthis, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. You can also join our Discord. The link's below in the description. And shout out to all the patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. The link to the Patreon is down below in the description, and you can check out our website at brahwegotthis.com. But like I said before, with update 29, making and building a character the way that you want it is honestly going to be a little more broad and confusing now, because you really have a lot more options as a player. This is a good thing. So I don't want people clicking off the video now because they are overwhelmed or want to give up. I want to help you with this. I'm going to go through step by step with you and show you some things you can do to help figure out what you want your build to look like. I'm going to give you tips and mistakes not to make, and the overall goal is to help you figure out how to build a character that you want to keep going back to play. Also, I'm going to break down each tip and kind of explain for beginners if it's your first character you're ever making, or if it's a vet character that you are respecing from the new update. I'll kind of go into what you should do for each side of things. So it's going to be for vets and for beginner players. So the first thing you need to decide when building your character is what race and class do you want to play. Now, you might notice I didn't say what role, because in my opinion, your role can come after. And I think for most new players, you really aren't going to know exactly what you want to play when you start out. So I always recommend playing a class that is appealing to you and fun for you, because for most people, you will get more enjoyment and longevity out of this game if you play a class and race that you enjoy over something that is specifically just the meta. Now, when I say this, please don't think I'm saying playing the meta builds, classes, races, and everything are dumb. It's not, because some people will enjoy and want to play the meta. My point in saying this is, in general, if you play a class or a race that you thoroughly enjoy, you can make that build into a tank, a DPS, or a healer, and you can thoroughly enjoy it and make it kind of your own meta. Every class and race in this game can play every role. Now, it doesn't mean that they will perform better statistically, but if you are enjoying it, then there's not an issue there. I've seen a lot of players try to play what is supposed to be the meta tank or the meta DPS, and they just don't like it. They enjoy something else, and that's fine. But some players enjoy what's the meta. So again, nothing wrong with that. But the meta does change, so the foundation that you should build your character on should be something that you enjoy, regardless if it's the meta or not. Ask yourself this question: would you enjoy this build or class if it dropped out of the meta? If the answer is yes, then that is probably a great starting place to build a character for a new player. And mind you, if it drops out of the meta, it's not completely useless, okay? You can clear a lot of content in this game with anything that you play, as long as you understand the basics of your character, the basics of the game, and the mechanics. You can do it. So that was a long preface to number 10 and number 9. I'm sorry, but thanks for listening. Number 10, find out which class interests you the most. Now, if you're interested and already you know you want to play a tank, DPS, or healer, I will tell you each class's strong suits so you know. Also, I have an ultimate class guide series that has been going on in the channel. I have done Dragon Knight and Sorcerer already, and I plan on doing every other class as well. They're very in-depth guides. They give you insights on what each skill and passive does. They give a rundown of each role within the class, and they give you 4 starter builds. Those videos are great places to start if you want to figure out what class to play, and that will be linked in the description. And to make sure you don't miss any of those or other content, make sure to like, subscribe, heavy attack that bell icon to stay up to date in the channel. So for Templar, this class does healing, magicka, and stamina DPS really well. Tanks are usually the weakest for the most part. For Nightblades, this class excels at magicka, stamina DPS, tanking, and can do solid healing, so it's really an all-around great class. Dragon Knight is amazing at tank, and it's pretty solid at magicka and stamina DPS. It's not as great as a healer, though. Sorcerers are MVP for magicka DPS and decent stamina DPS. They're great tanks, and they're good healers. Necromancers, in my opinion, are good at every role, bottom line. And Wardens are amazing healers and tanks, and pretty good stamina and magicka DPS characters, and some would say great. So you can kind of make your opinion on that once you play it. Number 9 is, what race should you pick? They currently updated the races and changed them a decent bit. So this tip is going to be directed towards beginner players and players that already have characters built out. Again, all races can play every role, but obviously some are going to excel better. If you have a character already built out and you don't like the racial changes, you want to play the meta race for your build, you can always buy a race change token. I know that sucks, but it's something that you can do. I would say that if you were already playing the meta race for your build, it probably won't affect it that much because you're already playing something great for that role. Like, they didn't just switch all the orc passives to be magicka now or something. So there were just slight changes on some races that make somewhat of a difference. So keep that in mind if you are a veteran player. Now, for new players just starting out, again, if you just are sold on a race, play it. But here's my quick analysis of each race to try to help you and what they are suited for. Nords are great tank races with great ulti regen and good stamina characters. High Elves are great Magicka-based characters and now actually do decent with stamina characters. Dark Elves are the jack-of-all-trade race. They can do tanking, healing, Magicka, and stamina classes. Great hybrids as well. Argonians are great healers and tanks. Bretons are amazing with Magicka. Imperials are good tanks and stamina classes. They're also good all around as well. Red Guards are good tanks and stamina races. Orcs are great stamina classes and farming classes. Khajiits are good all around stamina classes, crit builds, and stealth, and some Magicka as well. And Wood Elves make great stamina classes, stealth, and bow builds, and they're very fast as well. Now that you've chosen your race or class, or if you've respect, let's move on to your stats or attributes. Number 8, how to figure out what attributes you should allot. When I say attributes, that means health, Magicka, and stamina points you see here. Now, there are two sides of this because we have the beginner players starting at level 1 and the players with already made builds trying to figure out what to do after update 29. Let's start with you beginner players. With update 29, you now have more options with attributes, in my opinion, due to the fact that you can gain health, stamina, Magicka from the CP trees a lot more, and your base stats were bumped up. But for beginners, I would still recommend, if you want to build a Magicka DPS, stay with 64 points into Magicka. If you want to build a stamina DPS, 64 points into stamina. If you want to build a tank and you are under level 50, put points into Magicka, stamina, and some into health, because you're going to have plenty of health already from buff food that you need to be able to use your ability. So I would just do an even split, honestly, across the board. You could do 20 Magicka, 20 stamina, 24 health. If you're a healer, put 64 points into Magicka. The point I'm trying to make is that you're going to have the ability to change this when you hit 50 for free. But I recommend beginners doing this because it will allow you to see, hey, I really like Magicka DPS, or nah, I really want to try out stamina now. But make sure to put all the points in there so you get a better idea of this. Now, for players that have already built characters and are wondering, should I do the normal 64 points into Magicka and stamina for in-game builds? Yes, you can, but I would say and recommend trying out different things now because you can get a really high Magicka pool without having all points into Magicka now. Same with stamina and health. This is able to be achieved due to the CP system and the stat increase. So I would play around with it if you're in the CP levels. Like I said, my character, my main account right now is anywhere from 24 to 27k max health, and I don't have any points into health. So you can literally just try out anything with that. Try and see what you can get by putting your points into other attributes. Also for tanks, this is going to be based on your build. You could go all health and get your stamina and Magicka from glyphs and CP passives, so play around with it some. You also just have a lot of versatility. If you want to be safe though, do the normal 64 for the DPS classes and healing. Okay, number 7 now. Mundus Stones. These are important in the game, and I think a lot of players actually forget about these. We have 3 in our guild hall, but Mundus Stones need more thinking and choice now. For beginners, I do recommend going and activating your Mundus Stone. You just need to go up to one and accept the sign. What this does is gives you various bonuses based on the effect. So there's like a crit chance one, a crit damage, increased health, mag recovery, all of that. When you have the Divine's traits on items, that increases your Mundus Stone effects. I would say for beginners, for DPS, you could go crit damage or crit chance, which is the Shadow and Thief Stones. For tank, you could go the Lord, that increases health. And for healers, you could go the Ritual or the Lover. Now, for the players with already built characters, it's worth noting that you should consider changing your Mundus Stone or playing around with it, because with the new changes, again, you have so many options. If you want to make a crit build, you need to spec into it. You can't just do it all anymore, really. So you might need the Thief Stone over the Shadow to get that high crit chance that you used to have. But this allows you to have more choice again, so take a look at them and see where you're wanting to build. Number 6, skill lines and passives. You're going to have 3 class skill lines and a set of passives at your disposal for each class. When first starting out, I would level up each of those lines together. What this allows you to do is if you get to a point in the future where you want to play a different role on that class, then all you need to do is respec your skills and you are good to go. But if you only level up one line, then you won't have access to that quicker. For players that have already built characters, I would suggest leveling up the lines if you haven't done that already by doing random dungeons or battlegrounds or dolmens. Now, how should you actually do this when it comes to leveling up? Well, as a new player or a vet, the way that your skill lines are leveled are based on how many skills you have on your bar when you turn in a quest, get a creature kill, or do an activity. And the more skills of a skill line on the bar, the more XP you get for that skill line. So, for instance, you could slot 3 Ardent Flame abilities and 2 Draconic Power abilities for the DK on your skill bar. And you would level the Ardent Flame faster than the Draconic Power because there are more skills on the bar for Ardent Flame. So, I recommend putting 1 skill of each skill line on each of your bars and the weapon skills or guild skills on the rest. For passives, I recommend holding off until you have the skills you need while leveling. For vet or already built characters, you have a complete reset now. So go through your passives and see, do I really need this passive? Because if you don't put points into it. That will allow you to save a lot of your skill points. And I have a skill point farming guide actually in the description if you want to farm fast skill points. So this leads me to how should you spec your bar for each role in the game? So again, this is going to be your preference and change based off of your build. But I want to give you some general advice for each role to help you be successful on a ground level. This applies to new players and vets that already have their build and want to spec it again as well. For tanks in general, you want first and foremost to have a taunt. A taunt that every class will get is in the Sword and Board skill line called Pierce Armor. This is great and all tanks should have a taunt. Now there's Inner Rage, which is a ranged taunt, and there's the Frost Staff taunt as well. Next, as a tank, you want some form of CC or crowd control skill on your bar. This allows you to inflict status effects that could help you in terms of damage or mitigate some damage from the enemies or slow them or root them. It just basically helps your team out. Some examples are Unnerving Boneyard from the Necromancer skill line that applies major breach and frost damage, Choking Talons from the Dragonite skill line that roots and applies minor maim, and Gripping Shards from the Warden skill line that apply frost damage and reduces their movement speed. These are all great CC tools for tanks. A pull is another skill that is nice to have on your bar. This is something that pulls enemies to you to group up enemies tighter for more efficient and quicker DPS. So Dragonites have the Chains skill, Wardens have the Frost Teleport Circle skill, and all tanks have access to Silver Leash from the Fighters Guild skill line. A self-heal is nice as well for a tank on their bar. Wardens have Arctic Wind, and Nightblades have Shadow Cloak. And there's other heals as well in other classes. And another skill to have that would be nice for tanks is a shield to help mitigate damage. Now, for healers, having a hot or a heal over time that can heal all of your allies is great. Healing Springs from the Resto line is a great one of these. Almost every class has a heal over time. Burst heals, you also want one of those on your skill bar. That is a quick heal that heals someone from nothing to full health really quickly, like if they're in trouble. Combat Prayer is a great burst heal from the Resto line that everyone has access to. And again, all classes, for the most part, have access to some kind of burst heal. A buff or debuff skill, so Weakness to Elements from the Destruction staff line would be a great skill for healers to have, is a great one. And Combat Prayer, again, all classes can use because this is going to be a nice buff. Then a CC is nice as well for a healer. So the Lightning Staff Wall of Elements gives a great crowd control for your teammates. For DPS, this goes for Magicka and Stamina. You want to have single target skills for bosses. You want to have usually an AoE skill for adds or damage over time abilities. You want to have a spammable. So a spammable is a skill that you can use over and over as your main damage ability that is usually single target. So Force Pulse is a great spammable for Magicka DPS. Stamina DPS, you could use like Whirling Blades, which is a dual wield skill that's a good spammable. But every class has a spammable to use. Also, you can slot a shield or a self-heal for harder content or solo content if need be. This will allow you to stay alive longer as a DPS. You'll also want some skills for resource regeneration and management. So like Consuming Trap is a solid one from the Soul Magic line. Equilibrium is a great one in the Mages Guild line. Some classes have them as well in their class lines. So with all of this, if you slot a lot of the base skills or ideas on your bar that I just mentioned, you'll be pretty effective. Now, you still need to learn other ins and outs of doing more damage by weaving or tanking and healing, but I have guides on that here in the channel for that. Whew, that was a long number 6, but number 5, open your guild skill lines up. I have guides in the channel for every guild here. Fighters Guild, Psijic Order, Mages Guild, Undaunted. There are a lot of skills in these lines and passives that are great for every role, so I highly recommend going and unlocking these as soon as you get in the game. You can go to Solitude to unlock the Fighters and Mages Guild, or your starting city for each alliance, being Vocal Guard in Ardon for Automated Dominion, Daggerfall in Glenumbra for Daggerfall Covenant, and Davin's Watch in Stonefalls for Ebonheart Pact. It's simple and easy. For Undaunted, you can go to the taverns in those same cities, and you can talk to Turk's Redclaw. The one specifically that's in Vocal Guard, that's in Ardon, is the Salted Wings Tavern. Number 4, armor, traits, and enchantments. There's a lot to this when it comes to new players and vet players that have already built characters as well, so I'll start with new players first. For new players, the traits aren't really going to matter that much. Like, the effort to put in to get perfect traits on armor from 1 to level 50 are going to be out-leveled quicker, so don't worry too much about that. For enchants, most of the armor you get are going to have decent enchants and the ones you want on them by default when they drop. But when it comes to building out your character, one big thing I would say is you can have someone make training armor to help you level. You can also have people make you crafted sets that give you good bonuses early on to help you sustain. So for like Magicka classes, you could just have Julianos and Magnus's Gift. For stamina, you could run Hunting's Rage. For tanks, you could run Torok's Pact. For healers, you could run again Magnus's Gift, Seducer, Julianos. But for vets that are building their characters again, when you get to in-game armor, enchants, and traits, they actually matter, obviously. So there are so many possibilities now that you can do with the new CP system. I'm not going to be able to cover everything in this video, but I highly recommend trying different things that you like. For vets, though, I'm going to try to simplify this to give you a baseline. When it comes to Magicka DPS, I believe that you can still run 5 light armor, 1 heavy armor, and 1 medium armor. But I have been running 7 light because I find that I like that more, so I don't have the heavy armor penalties. For the traits, I've found that Divines seems good on all armor. The max Magicka enchants as well for the armor. For jewelry, I think Bloodthirsty is a good trait with Magicka recovery enchants. And weapons, I feel like Sharpened and Nirnholm traits are great with various enchants. Now, you have more flexibility as a build now, so you could switch some of this up. You may not need all max Magicka enchants, but this is something that is going to be case by case. With stamina DPS, again, all medium armor. Divine's traits. Jewelry can be stamina, recovery, and bloodthirsty. Weapons can be Nirnholmed, sharpened, or precise with various enchants. For tanks, it can be a bunch of things. You typically are looking for 5 heavy, 1 light, 1 medium, but can also go all heavy, and that's what I've been doing. Traits can be mixed of infused on the chest, head, and leg pieces because those pieces give the biggest bonuses when it comes to enchants. Sturdy and reinforced on others. Enchants can be a mix of tri-stat glyphs and health, magicka, and stamina, but putting your most important glyphs again on the head, chest, and legs because those have the infused trait and have the biggest bonus. But this is going to change per your build, and you have so much flexibility as a tank now. For jewelry, same thing. Honestly, it could be whatever fits your build. For weapons, you could do decisive on the sword for the trait, sturdy on the shield. For staves, you could do charge to increase status effect. For healers, you can go all light armor. You can do a mix of infused and divine's traits with max magic enchants. For jewelry, you can go infused. And weapons for your resto, you want to go powered, which increases the healing done, and charged on the destro staff, which increases the status effects for like lightning CC. But saying all this again is just a baseline. Now, another tip I want to give you is make sure you are utilizing your armor sets efficiently. This goes for new players and vet players. If you're running a 5-piece bonus set, you need to have all 5 pieces to get that bonus. So if you're running 3 and 3 and 3, you aren't getting the bonuses. You're getting the 3-piece bonuses, but not the 5-piece. I know some setups use similar things like that, but this is not the general setup for the most part. And here's my tip. Slot a 5-piece armor set on the chest, legs, gauntlet, belt, and gloves. Then for your other set, you can use either 3 pieces of jewelry and shoulders and a helmet, or you could go 3 pieces of jewelry and weapon slots. Because remember, destruction staves, resto staves, 2-handed weapons, and bows count as 2 items in a set. So you could have burning spellweave rings and the inferno staff and have the 5-piece bonus. Now, if you switch to your back bar, if you don't have a burning spellweave staff, you will have 3 pieces, so keep that in mind. So to be efficient, you could put a willpower staff on the back bar, or like a magicka or a maelstrom staff, and those would give you a 2-piece bonus for each of those. So these are all things that will give you efficient armor setups. For new players, stick to 5 body pieces, 3 jewelry, and a head and shoulder. Then for your weapons, you can use some of the item sets you already have, like willpower or something like that. But eventually you want to transition to having a monster set on head and shoulders. And now, not every build is going to run a monster set, but I'm just saying this is a good baseline. So a monster set on head and shoulders, because that's a 2-piece set, 5 body pieces, and 5 jewels and weapon slots, with 1 weapon being an arena weapon or a willpower weapon to be the most efficient. This leads me to number 3, upgrading the rarity of your item. As a new player, if you're below level 50, you do not need gold weapons, jewelry, or armor. You may not even need purple, but blue and purple will suffice. Now, when you get to vet in-game levels, like already built out characters for update 29, I only recommend having purple armor and jewelry for a build you like and golding out the weapons. Golding out the weapons are the only thing that is actually worth it for in-game outside of min-maxing, because the bonus from purple to gold is significantly more than purple to gold armor. Now, to make this easier for you when farming for sets, you can get all purple gear in dungeons on veteran mode. If you need jewelry, I do recommend doing the dungeon on vet so it will drop as purple. If you want to just get item sets like the body pieces and like the weapons, I'd farm it on normal to get the blue and upgrade to purple. It's just faster that way. For trials, when you do it on vet, you can get gold jewelry as well, which is awesome. But here's my last point with this. If you absolutely love the build you're playing and always will play it no matter what, go ahead and gold out everything. But it will cost a lot of gold. I never recommend players golding out jewelry because of the price. But if you want to min-max, then you can gold out everything. Otherwise, you'll be fine with purple jewelry and armor and gold weapons. Do not gold out weapons until you are satisfied with your build. And especially do not gold out weapons and armor if they are below CP 160. Number 2, how long should you give a class or build a chance until you switch to something else? So this is a question that I get a lot of the times is, should I make another character if I'm not enjoying my character? It's hard to answer this because sometimes when leveling a character, you really don't get to see its effectiveness until later in the game. And plus, some skills and passives may not even be unlocked yet. So to answer this, I say if you follow my last 8 tips, this will set you up to minimize this question as much as possible. Now, for some players, they just get bored easily with one character. And to that, I say, create another character. But I really think you should give a class to level 50 and into CP 160 plus to see if you somewhat would like playing it. That way, you have some sort of semblance of what to expect. Now, if you just absolutely hate the skills and the way the class feels, I totally get starting a different one. But do keep in mind, if you ask yourself that question at the beginning about, is this a class that I could see myself playing if the meta changes or anything like that? This will help you with the situation a lot because picking something that interests you is the first step. I have been playing the game for 6+ years. I had a main character for 4 to 5 years of that, and I only had one other character about 4.5 to 5 years in. The last 1.5 to 2 years, I have made like 13 characters. So I did a lot of stuff on my main account and I really, really enjoyed it. Now, if I picked a class that I just didn't like, I may not have played that long. But also, I've been playing the game again, like I said, for 6+ years, and I am still figuring out how to build a Templar the way that I like it. It's just something I haven't found enjoyable for me personally, but I'm starting to like it the way that I've built it. I started with a healer and then I deleted it. Then I made a Magicka DPS. I leveled up all the lines like I told you guys to do earlier. Then I spec'd it into a stamina DPS because I didn't like the Magicka DPS. Then I played stamina DPS. Didn't really like it. Then I spec'd it into a tank. Played a little bit of a tank. Didn't really like it. Now I made it back into a healer and I'm really enjoying it. So don't be afraid to respec and try something else. But if you level up all your lines, like I said, and you do all these tips before, this will allow you to try other forms of your role if you don't like the initial one. And again, you may just get to a point where you just don't like the class you're playing, and that's perfectly fine. Definitely make another character because you have multiple character slots. But I definitely think you need to give it a good bit of time, especially past level 50, because some of these classes, you're really not going to see the fun in them until you get above level 50, and that's just my opinion. Number 1 is the champion points. This is something that obviously completely changed in this update. And if you want a full guide on that, it is in the description below. But basically with the champion points, they completely revamped them. We now have an increased cap of 3,600 and you have passives and slottables. So I'm going to break this down as simple as I can. For vet players that are rebuilding characters right now, the blue tree is damage, crit, healing, and tanking mitigation. The green tree is crafting and non-combat for the most part. The red tree is, I would say, like utility or like cost reduction, roll dodging, blocking, cool perks that augment your build. Within these trees, you have your passive skills. These you will automatically get for just the amount of points that you put into them. Then you have a different color star that say add to get the effect, basically. These have to be slotted in the slottable bar above to get them. So if you're a healer, you have like a healing side. If you have DPS, if you're a DPS, you have like the crit and damage over time side. If you're a tank, you've got mitigation. This is where diversity for builds comes in. You can only slot 4 of these slottable stars, so you need to pick them wisely. My recommendation as a vet is try out a mix and match of each of these as you play your character. For tanks, try mitigation. And when you level higher up, put some points in the DPS side and slot some of those if you see that you can mix it and match it. As healers, do the same thing. Try all healing and then try mix and matching. This is going to be a trial and error process for everyone. Everyone's CP trees are going to look a little different because it now can be so customizable. The passives are things that everyone will get as they level up, but I would just try out different things. And as a low level, don't worry about this too much until you get into these levels. But those are my 10 tips, y'all, on how to build your character from the ground up and to really help you set yourself up later in the game and, help you have continued success if you are later in the game now. I really hope that you guys like this. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, heavy attack that bell icon. It really helps me out, y'all. I do really appreciate everyone. Again, thank you so much for all the support, y'all. And remember, if you need any help or anything, we've got a great Discord down in the description. We also have the Twitch stream Monday, Thursday, Saturday. I stream there. And you can check that out, twitch.tv/brahwegotthis. You can ask me any questions there and leave a comment below. If you got a tip for someone when building their character, I'd love to see it down in the comments. But until next time, y'all, just remember to have faith, be great, and I'll see you on ESO.